she's an absolute star. She's a legend. I mean, in my eyes, like she's a very young woman doing that solo bike rider thing. Tough enough for a man, a lot harder for a woman. She just basically gave up the job, said, right, that's it for me. I'm going to change my life, new chapter in my life. That is so refreshing to see, eh? Not some old crony like me going, oh, and then in 2005 I got divorced. Bollocks, okay? So please, let's go ballistic for the wonderful Runa. Come on stage!
Can you hear me all right? Is there any sound on now? Yeah? Hello, and thank you for showing up. It's so cool to see all of you here. And thank you, ABR, for having me. It's been quite surreal to kind of see my name on the list of all the other speakers here. So it's been my inspiration coming here. So some of you might not know who I am, so I figured better off starting with the basics. My name is Runa. I'm from Norway. I'm 30 years old. And 1 year ago, I quit my full-time job to become a so-called full-time motorcycle content creator. And today I would like to take you along a little bit on the journey that it's been, all the way from getting my license and all the challenges and experiences that I had along the way, coming here where I am today. So let's do that. So I grew up in a family who's been very passionate about outdoor life from the very beginning. Since literally before I could walk, we were outdoors all year round, hiking and camping and trekking, fishing, hunting, all of it, all year round. And that's a passion that I've taken with me into my adult life, spending time outdoors. And another element that's been a huge part of my life for many years, as Billy mentioned previously, is a sport, archery. That is maybe not so well known across the world, but you might be surprised at how big it actually is. And I ended up spending 11 years on the national team of Norway, and did quite good. I have a World Championship gold, silver, bronze, European gold, all of that. Yeah. Thank you. And I'm not saying that just to brag, although that's of course a bonus. But because doing all that at the same time as having a full-time job, I worked as a nurse at the time, is very time-consuming. So there wasn't really any time or money left over to do anything else. But in 2020, as you might recall, there was a pandemic that hit the world that kind of put an end to all activities in general. All competitions were shut down, all practices were shut down. So I found myself like, what do I do now? I have all this time. What do I spend my spare time on? So first months, I just worked a lot at the hospital, but then that kind of gets boring as well. And so I figured this might be a good time as any. I had money left over because I didn't spend them traveling and competing all that. So yeah, why not get my motorcycle license? And I did not do that just on a whim. I grew up with both of my parents rode motorcycles when they were my age. So I kind of grew up with looking through their albums from when they were on their rides through Europe and Norway and went to festivals and all like this. And I thought, shit, that looks like fun. I want to do that as well sometime. And yeah, here we are. I got my license in June of 2020, so just over 4 years ago. And for me, getting my motorcycle license, it's never been about the thrill of the speed or the rush of adrenaline, you know, riding fast and scraping your knees in the corner and all that. It's appealed to me as a really cool way of traveling and getting around and exploring. If you watch my channel for a while, you know that I'm a huge fan of traveling slowly. I like to have my coffee and ice cream and enjoy the view and look at the mountains and all that. Yeah, really no rush and no need of being anywhere anytime. Pretty poorly planned usually. That's part of the adventure. So a couple of weeks after I got my license, I packed out my first bike, which was a Suzuki Intruder 1986 model. And we went for a couple camping trips just over the weekend here and there, and I absolutely loved it. And from the very beginning, I've traveled on my own, and I get a lot of questions like, why do you do that? And I think because there's so many of us who choose to travel alone, and the ones who do, I think you all know the answer to that. It's just a very natural way of doing it. Since the very beginning, since a very early age, I've appreciated spending time alone. Had a need to spend some time alone. That's how I recharge. That's what I enjoy doing. At the same time as being a rookie, being a beginner, getting on the road on my own was a very nice way of getting experience and getting to know myself as a biker as well. Not having anyone else push me to go faster or further than I wanted to. I could have as many stops as I wanted to, and yeah, just really getting to my own flow and rhythm of how to ride. And yeah, as I kind of explored more of the life on the road, I suppose, I realized that this is something I want to do more of. I want to go further. I want to ride, be on the road for longer. And I also realized that there are bikes out there that was a little bit more suitable for the kind of riding that I did, or I wanted to do, although any bike is an adventure bike. But I wanted something a little bit more newer and more reliable than my Suzuki. And so my question why I chose a KTM for that job. But that's a discussion for a later day. But I ended up getting a second-hand KTM 790 Adventure as my second bike. And with a new bike on board, I started to plan like my first bigger trip. So I got the bike in November 2020, I think, and I wanted to do a bigger trip in the summer of 2021. I wanted to go to all four corners of Norway, as far as you can find corners in not so very square country. But going all the way south, west, north, and east as you can in mainland Norway. And I figured it was a nice way to start traveling in your own country, a country that you know and know your way about. And at the same time, there's no lack of challenges. If you've been to Norway, you know you've got the funky weather going on there, and at the same time, there's quite a bit of a distance in between locations sometimes. So, figured it was a good way to start. This is a picture of me on the departure day of my first big trip in June 2021, with all the things that I thought I would need to be on the road for a month, about a month. And up until this day, I still had not tried riding my bike with all the luggage. Because honestly, I was a little bit scared about that, just because it's big and chunky. So I did the only adult thing you can do when you're scared of something. I avoided it completely until it was no longer an option on departure day. So when I was about to take off, my bike was kind of positioned a little bit further in front here, from those bushes there. You can see them here, yeah? And you might imagine what happened. As soon as I got on the bike and took off the side stand, I fall over with my bike and everything into the bushes. But that was also the only mistake, I guess, or big thing that happened on that trip. I ended up having a blast. I loved it. Made it all the way north and all the way south and to all my destinations that I had planned. And yeah, absolutely loved it. 4 weeks doing just about 7,000 kilometers. I think that's about 4,350 miles. I'm not sure. I think so. And as I kind of dived deeper and deeper into this world of adventure riding, sorry, I also discovered these ladies right here. And just the whole world in general of motovlogging on YouTube. And I thought it was so freaking cool, not just because the travels they did and everything they got to experience, but also because how they've been able to make something more of a hobby or make your passion into a livelihood. That was so inspirational, and it was pretty quickly like a little voice in the back of my mind asking, maybe at some point that's something I can do for myself as well. After all, how hard can it be? Looks fairly easy, right? You get a couple cameras and you film a little bit here and there in your trips, and you come back home, put it together in a video, publish it, and that's it, yeah? The whole experience of getting into motovlogging has been so humbling. Realizing how much time and effort and money and planning that goes into making these videos is it's mind-blowing. But yeah, it's also kind of, it's awkward. That those first moments when you get your camera and you point at yourself, trying to talk, all that, it is awkward. And then publishing it online for not just unknown to see, but also your friends and families and colleagues, what the heck is she up to now? It's, yeah, it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. But my whole life I've always been, it's always been important to me to do the things I want to do, even though it can be a little bit uncomfortable and scary. Not to the point where like your whole experience is just a negative one, but at least finding that limit, like how far can you actually push yourself. And I just think you learn so much about yourself when you push your comfort zone a little bit. But how far is far enough? Like everyone else, I'm scared of a lot in life, and it's kind of a cliche saying this, but if there's one thing I'm more scared of than anything, it's probably growing old and realizing I didn't do all the things that I wanted to do just because I was a little bit scared of being uncomfortable. And it's one thing if you don't have the money or the health or the just resources to get there, but if being a little bit scared is like the only thing holding you back, I think we all owe ourselves to at least try and see how far we get. I'm very much like a what if kind of person. I think we see all these people doing it, traveling the world and doing everything that's, oh shit, that's kind of cool, but it's also scary. And we think that they're so fearless, like I could never do that myself because I'm scared, so they're probably not scared, so yeah. And realizing that everyone is a little bit scared, and doing this is just a part of like pushing through that and working through it. It's it's pretty cool. So how far is far enough? Of course, that is very, very individual. Some might end up traveling the world for years, and some might have more than enough with going for that ice cream on a Sunday or going for that first solo ride, and then everything in between. And then some might end up signing up for the world's largest enduro race with no experience. And that someone might have been me. Last year I was challenged to participate at Gotland Grand Nationals, which is considered to be the world's largest enduro race. Last year there were more than 3,500 riders who came together to participate that weekend, with more than 1,000 riders on the same track at the same time. And one of those starts of one of the smaller classes looks something like this. Do I press it? Yeah. This is one of the smaller classes. It's quite crowded up there. You have 3 hours to do as many laps as possible. One lap is 22 kilometers. And coming from like this, being my way of traveling, roadside naps and views and coffees and all that, and changing that up to this. Yeah, it's different. Making mud and bruises and dirt, part of my new life. But it was a blast. I had so much fun learning. Because part of it was me wanting to get more confident on the bike, learning more skills to ride off-road. And I got really good help from a local Husqvarna dealership who borrowed me a bike that I could practice on, a small Husqvarna TE 150. And I also got the support from, this is Håvan Nevland, a very skilled enduro rider. He won the prologue of Red Bull Romaniacs a couple of years ago. In the process, there's a picture of him stepping on the foot of Paul Torres as he passes him. I think that's kind of cool. Not many can say that they've done that, but I made it to the race, and I'm not sleeping here. I'm just simply trying to not throw up to keep my breakfast down. I've competed a lot of the years through archery, about world championship titles and all that. But I can, with hand on my heart, say that I've never been as nervous as I was that day. But what kind of keeps you motivated in those situations, because you end up, I don't really want to be here. This is too much. I don't want to do this. But knowing that feeling you'll have at the end when you push through and do the thing, it's so rewarding. And that was kind of what kept me going. And I made it all the way through. This is a picture of the very beginning of the race. And I was so full of adrenaline, like you can literally barely control your body. You're just a big blob of jello. But after 20-30 minutes, when that had time to wear off a little bit, you actually have time to enjoy it and like be in the moment. And it was such a good time. And I like this picture because it looks like I'm going really fast. But in real time, I'm doing the whole race in like first and second, a little bit of third gear, just the whole way around. But it doesn't matter. I wasn't there to perform or like perform on and rank high. I was there simply to see like, is this something a rookie or a beginner rider actually can do? And it very much is. And I ended up doing 3 laps, 66 kilometers over 3.5 hours, and it was fantastic. Would I do it again? Maybe. Now I've done it, so on to the next, But this is very much like one of those situations where, yeah, it's physically draining and uncomfortable as well, but mostly it's internally in your head, like, because it's scary. You haven't done it before, and it's scary. But there are also ways to be physically uncomfortable. For example, if you're riding in minus 30 degrees in the winter, that's kind of physically uncomfortable. This winter, the first weekend of January, I was invited by Twin Pegs, he's right over here, they have a stand as well on ABR, for my first ever winter riding experience, which is kind of popular in Norway. You pop spikes on your tires and you go out there to enjoy the winter landscape and all that. But what we didn't know was that there was a cold wave coming to Norway for that weekend. That broke records all over the country, I think the neighboring country as well, Sweden and Finland, with how low the temperatures got. We got creative with way to protect yourself, because when you're riding in those temperatures, it's not just cold, but like you get the wind chill as well, so the temperatures are easily down to like minus 50 degrees. And it's not all fun and games, it can be dangerous as well. After 15 minutes, without his goggles on, he's got the beginning of a frostbite on his face. He luckily recovered well. It was just a reminder of like, this is not just fun and games. But we ended up having a great time, and we'll probably do it again sometime. Maybe not in minus 30, but yeah, we'll see. Anyway, back to the main storyline. It is 2021, and I have just purchased my first second-hand action camera, and I'm ready to start kind of documenting my trips and getting into motovlogging and learning editing and all that. I went for a couple like shorter trips over a week or two through Europe and also a little bit in Norway. I created my YouTube channel, off she goes, and got into editing and spent so many hours just with YouTube tutorials trying to learn how to edit and publish my videos. And I ended up getting a little small amount of followers eventually, but there were one trip in particular that kind of had my numbers growing more than the others. And I think there's one thing that kind of unites us more than anything, or there's so many things, but one of those things as adventure riders, and that's probably taking the roads less traveled, getting off the main road and into nature and mountains, and that feeling of like having the road all for yourself, just being surrounded by mountains and all that. We all know that's a fantastic feeling. We have an abundance of that in the Nordic countries, but there's another country where yeah, there's a lot of that. If you jump on that ferry right here in Denmark and you travel for 55 hours, you end up in Iceland. I traveled there at the end of August in 2022. Spent 2 weeks riding there. That was kind of my first trip doing a little more gravel riding as well, and getting off the main road. And it was absolutely epic. It's becoming more and more popular as a motorcycle destination or tourist destination in general, I guess, and for good reasons. It is fantastic. I've never experienced such a feeling of like being the only one left on Earth in just so much nothingness. Just as far as you can see, there's not even a green blob of moss. There's just nothing, just black stone. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's really fascinating, and I think it's healthy for us a little too to kind of get that feeling of being on your own and just trust yourself while you're out there. But at the same time, you have these locations that are so fresh and green, and with the contrast with the black lava stone, it's just I've never seen anything like it anywhere before. And I always advise everyone, if you haven't been there, you probably need to go there at some point. And seeing the steam coming out from the ground, it's like, yeah, it's really riding in a whole different world. But, all right. Like I said, this was the kind of trip that made me gain a little bit more followers. And it was also the first, at that time, where I got monetized, as it's called, on YouTube, where I started to make a little bit of money. Not a lot, a couple €100 a month. But it was enough to make me realize, like, all right, this might actually be doable. And just a couple months later, in February of 2023, I was contacted by Husqvarna Motorcycle Scandinavia, because they were looking for an ambassador for their Husqvarna Norden 901. And after a few meetings, just to make sure that our interests and all that aligned, I was happy to accept a collaboration with them that I still have going today. And having that, that means I get to borrow one of their bikes through the season, and having that huge cost of a motorcycle cut out my budget just really freed up money to do other things. Many people ask me, like, how can I afford this? And I totally understand that, because that was my question as well when I got started with this. Like, how can people afford traveling for so many years? Like, where does the money come from? And well, I guess there's not really an easy answer to that. It's three very expensive hobbies combined, with traveling and motorcycling and photography and all that. And sharing your life on social media, you know, we get a lot of, not a lot, but a few nasty comments here and there. But I think there's one comment that, like, really hits where it hurts, and that's when people assume that, oh, you're just a rich girl. You're from Norway, you got a lot of money, you're so privileged, you never worked for anything in your life. You know, when that's as far from the truth as it can be. Growing up, we didn't really have a lot, less than people around me. So from an early age, like, we learned how to work for money, and got our summer jobs and weekend jobs, and if you wanted something, you have to work for it. And it makes you learn to prioritize, and if you want to do something, you spend your money on this and not on that, and that's okay. And I moved away from home when I was 16, halfway across the country, because I wanted to attend a top athlete school. And ever since then, I've been providing for myself, with some tough calls every now and then. You know, you gotta, if you spend money on one thing, you can't do the other. And that's something I've taken with me into my adult life. So being able to afford this is prioritizing and yeah, working for it and saving up. It's as easy and hard as that. At the same time, as I know I'm privileged to be in a country like Norway with the welfare system we have, and knowing that if I screw up, there's always going to be a system to catch me. And being a nurse as a background, I always know that I have a job that I can come back to. So that's been a safety, and probably makes it easier to take a risk like this as well. My sponsors as well, of course, have made it so much easier. And I know people don't really want to hear about sponsors, at least in my videos. They thought, oh, it's too much visibly, like you're just promoting your sponsors. But without them, I literally could not do what I do. They are such a big part of all this. And more than just, you know, when you get to a certain size, you get many offers of just receiving free gear. And it's about so much more than just receiving free gear, but finding companies and products that you actually trust and you want to use. It's really important. And then eventually become more friends than colleagues and then just collaborating partners. So thank you, my official thank you to all of my sponsors for letting me do this. All right, so I became ambassador for Husqvarna 2023, which was a little bit of a surreal time, as you can imagine. I had so all of a sudden all this freedom, and at this time my YouTube was still not nearly enough to support me full time. So I created my own little business on the side, where I help a few small local businesses at home with their social media and all that. Just so I needed a laptop, and that's all I need. I can work from anywhere. But yeah, I had all of a sudden all this freedom, I think, because there's so much responsibility and unpredictability as well. Just getting into learning how to run a business in general, with all the laws and regulations and everything that comes along with it, the financial part and everything. You're in a business, at least you have your accountant, you have your people who know what they're doing. Now I'm just me. I'm supposed to do everything. But yeah, it's I figured it out along the way. But what do you do when you can do whatever you want from whatever you want? You go for a ride. So last year I went for my first trip where I kind of didn't know when I was going to get home again. Wanted to get a feel of how long I could be on the road. And I ended up spending 42 days riding around Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Riding through Norway, hands on my heart, I don't think I'll ever get tired of that. Just because it's so, the diversity of being able to ride along the fjords, and then half an hour later up in the mountains, and it's stunning. And if you haven't been there, you gotta go. You gotta go there. And I heard that there's a ferry coming soon in 2026 from England over to Norway, so that's gonna make everything a whole lot easier. I camped a lot this trip as well. Of 42 days, I think I spent over 30 of them in my tent. I enjoyed spending time outdoors. And yeah, it's stunning. This is from a previous trip, but I was there the same on this trip as well, on Senja. Many have heard of Lofoten in Norway. It's a very popular place, but it's also very crowded. If you go a couple hours further north, you come to Senja, and it's just as stunning without all of the people. Just a quick advice. I crossed into Sweden, and I rode south through most of the Trans-Euro Trail, which I'm just going to assume that people know what is. Gravel track that goes all the way through Europe. And I also crossed into Denmark. And I don't have a lot of pictures from Denmark because I did not spend a lot of time there. As I said, one of my missions with this trip in general was to see how long is long enough? How long can I be in a road before I want to go home? You see all these people who spend weeks and months and years on the road, and I want to do that as well. And we question, how do they do that? How do they manage the finances? How do they manage the rest days? Because I had so many questions, like how is this even possible? With all the editing and everything that goes on the road. But I figured I didn't really have anyone to ask, so what do? You try, and you get experience, and you try to find your own way to do it. So I started off pretty hard. I wanted to publish 2 episodes a week while I was on the road, because that's what everyone else does. And I spent about 10 to 15 hours editing one of my episodes. At the same time as, answering the comments, the messages, emails, all the admin stuff. My other job on the side, creating content for my other clients at the same time. And then you also have those 8 to 10 hours a day where you're on the bike and you're filming and actually creating the content. So I literally was working from the moment I opened my eyes until I went to bed. Yeah, needless to say, I drained my batteries pretty quickly. Yeah, it's a full-time job. And looking back at it now, it's easy to see how that was not possible, how that was not doable over a period of time. I had a couple of rest days through the whole thing. But you just gotta figure it out, I try now more and more to separate work and travel as much as possible, because there's a reason why they say, don't mix pleasure with business, because at the end of the day, you'll end up the pleasure being more business than anything. And the reason I do this is because I enjoy it, and if it's all become just a hassle and work and all about getting your content out there, it just kind of lose its point, doesn't it? So I try my best now to find a solution to make it a little bit more sustainable. I'm not quite there yet, but I'll figure it out. My most recent trip, I tried my best to get out there and travel and get back home, and then do all the work when I get back home. So I can actually enjoy being on the road, and then get back home and actually spend those extra hours with editing and creating the content that I want it to be, and spending extra hours on my videos and making them as good as I want them to be. With that new way of doing it in mind, I went on my most recent trip in March and February this year. I traveled to New Zealand, leaving the winter behind and arriving in summer in New Zealand. It was pretty fantastic. I was able to borrow a bike from Husqvarna Motorcycles New Zealand to save me that cost and hassle of transporting my bike. And New Zealand is really a motorcycle paradise. It has it all. Even if you just want to ride on tarmac, there's so many options with fjords and mountains and everything in between. In many ways, it reminds me a lot of Norway, Scandinavia, as many already know. While at the same time, it's so different. You're riding through the fjords, and there's all the bush and jungle there. It's fantastic. And also volcanoes. There's a lot of volcanic rocks and all that throughout New Zealand. Fantastic location, and a camper's paradise. They have so many of these little small unmanned campsites, which is a little bit of running water and then unflushable toilets that takes you off the highway. And yeah, well, I was there for a month, and I had 3 or 4 nights where I slept indoors with people that I that I got to know along the way, and the rest I spent outdoors. With a couple of fails along the way. New Zealand also has they have a lot of gravel roads, but the gravel is usually pretty loose. And I'm still to this day not very comfortable or good at riding on loose surfaces, but hey, we manage. And I also got to do my first river crossing, which is kind of a big deal if you haven't done it before. I got some comments from when I published this videos, like, that's like, just blast over it, like, that's not a big deal, everyone does it. But when it's your first time and you haven't done it before, and you're on your own, like, what do I do if I drop the bike there? The water was knee deep. It's, you take a little bit of cautious and everything. First time you do everything, it's kind of a big deal, so. I also ended up meeting Kinga from on her bike, which was also a bit surreal. Having her as my idol for a few years already and watching her videos, and then all of a sudden being there, doing this myself, it was epic and really inspirational to have someone to ask all my questions as well. And that already leads me to towards the end of the presentation. What's next? This is the part of the presentation I haven't planned yet because I don't really know. There's so many plans going forward. Starting off, I kind of thought I would be happy with just, get out there and travel a little bit and get back home and have a normal life in between. But the more I do it and the more I surround myself with other people who travel, I get the pull of, being on the road for a little bit longer at the time. So I have no idea what's up next. I have some ideas, and there will definitely be stuff coming up next. So yeah, we just have to see. There's a lot of the world left to explore. So yeah, I hope you want to be part of it. And with that, I'll say thank you for being here.
That was very, very cool. Inspirational, just packing it all in. You go for it. I love it. I love it. You never got divorced in 2005, did you?
No, I did not.
No. Well, there's time. Listen, you're not just going to get away like that, okay? So we've got a few prizes to give out, and we've got some questions, okay? So if you put your hand up and ask a question, you bastard. So you get a Charlie Bournemouth book. Thank you very much. And a question.
Okay, so you're riding adventure bikes, all the time. If you had an option, and bearing in mind the correct answer is Husqvarna, what would be in your fantasy garage, and what would you like to ride?
Oh, that's a hard question. More than one bike, of course. Probably also a smaller bike. Like, I would really like to continue with some enduro riding because you gain so much skills with that. For my adventure bike, I'll keep my Norden. It's the bike that I had to do the fewest compromises with when it comes to my riding because I can do everything on it. And other than that, I'm not a very mechanical car person at all. I don't really know a lot about motorcycles and cars in general, so I don't know.
Here we got another question here. This man got me first. I'll come back to you. The man with the receding hairline. It's very attractive, though. Oh, Jesus Christ! And the winner is.
Hi. That was really inspirational. Thank you. You've just spoken about the bike. What's the one luxury? Do you have a luxury that you would not leave home without, other than the bike and the tent, of course?
Tough question. I usually bring a book, which is a little bit chunky, but I really enjoy reading, so I usually bring a book on my trips.
A book that you could recommend?
Sorry?
Any book that you could recommend?
Oh, Elspeth Beard's book is really good. Yeah.
And this one, I think.
Yeah.
This one, apparently.
Probably pretty good.
And another question. There was the other man here. There you go. Take a long way down. Or if you got one way down. Okay, would you like Race to Dakar as well? Go on, there's two. Okay, we've got 2 books left, okay? Okay. So anyway.
Hi, just wanted to know what your favourite place you've ever been to is and your favourite country that you've travelled to so far.
That is also a hard question, but I don't know if it's because it's like most fresh in my mind, but New Zealand was fantastic. I really loved it. But any country with mountains and fjords and lakes and just good views and little population is yeah, one of my favorites.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. There you go, sir. Pick a book, any book. Pick a book. Just one book. Anyone, do you want a book? Take a book.
Oh yeah. Any plans to do a world trip?
It's tickling my mind more and more. It is. If I'll do it in one go, or if I'll do it more like travel for a bit and then park my bike and get back home and kind of take a rest, I don't know, because I haven't done it before. But I'll really want to travel more of the world, and how I do it, I don't know yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a start. Loads of inspiration there, loads of young people getting into this game. Louder, come on, let's hear it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very, very cool. Thank you.